What's up, ladies and gents? Welcome back to the Muscle Intelligence Podcast. I'm your host, Ben Pakulski. Living your life in your greatest body means sometimes going outside the lines and seeing what exists in the fringe. And today's conversation is definitely fringe, not because it's not substantiated, but because people really don't know a lot about this. This may be the next frontier in performance. Many really, really bright physicians and leaders in the fitness space think it is so. Today's guest is one of the top authorities in the fitness space when it comes to peptides. He's been on the podcast before, but I brought him back because I get so many questions about peptides. And to be honest, the first time we interviewed, I didn't know a lot about peptides. So in the interim, I've had the opportunity to dive into peptides a little bit more, being able to explore some of the work of Dr. Dan Stickler, who is also a guest on the show, who will be a guest on the show again very, very soon. He's an amazing, brilliant guy. But today's guest is Jean-Francois Tremblay from Montreal, Canada. I apologize if there's a bit of a disconnect trying to understand his voice. I'll do my best to summarize everything he says in many of the aspects of the podcast. So when we discuss peptides, we're going to look at the ones that are most substantiated. There's literally thousands of peptides that exist. We've identified over 7,000 peptides. We know that at least 100 of them have really, really beneficial effects when taken exogenously or in isolated forms. So the ones that we discuss at the beginning of the podcast are the ones that have the most scientific data in humans, and that is BPC 157 and TB 500. Both of those, we discuss the effects, the benefits, and the dosing protocols. We also discuss Epitalon, which is said to increase the length of your telomeres. It's suggests to improve lymph flow, potentially positive effects on cancer, increase melatonin, and many, many positive benefits just for overall health optimization and longevity. We discuss CJC 1295. We discuss tesamorelin, ipamorelin, all these secretagogue growth hormone precursors that have had tremendous exposure as of late, especially in the TRT space. A lot of people are looking at these things, and there's really a lot of research out there, but some of the findings are a bit inconclusive, and it seems to be that, what may work for me may not work for you, as is often the case in most things. We also discuss SARMs. So SARMs being things that are selective androgen receptor modulators, meaning they have potential to have steroid-like effects without the negative effects on your hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. So SARMs being RAD 140 or ostarine, S4, and we discuss a number of other peptides that I've never heard of that Jean-Francois is bringing to the table, and all of his information checks out. So just so you guys know, I've vetted Jean-Francois. Like, he's not just some guy who we're bringing in who claims to know what he's talking about. Everything he says in this podcast checks out with other top authorities in the space. So if you're curious about whether or not this is the truth, it seems as though he's very, very well up to date on all of the research with all of the claims that he's saying. He's very accurate compared to what I have seen to be suggested in other places. Now, that's not saying I'm an authority on peptides by any stretch that I can validate his opinions, but everywhere I look, he is saying the same thing as all of the other experts. So take that as you will. I do not advocate the use of any illegal substances. Not that peptides are actually illegal. They're for research purposes only. Apparently you can buy them legally on the internet if it's for research purposes. But I do not condone or advocate the use of anything that may not be for research purposes. I'll just spit that out there for you guys, because I do take this stuff seriously and I don't want anybody to do something stupid. Pay attention to the dosing protocols if you are going to do it. These are things that are substantially researched. And I'm very grateful for Jean-Francois jumping on the podcast with me again. He actually drove down to see me in Toronto so we can do this thing live. We got to chat a little bit. He's got some really cool things in the pipeline for you guys in the future, which is super exciting. So I hope you enjoy the podcast with Jean-Francois Tremblay. And if you can't understand it, I apologize, but I'll do my best to always give you the best information I possibly can. You guys can join me in the Muscle Intelligence Facebook group, where I'm often giving updates on podcasts, reports on podcasts that are being launched, and maybe some additional show notes and updates from other previous guests. Have an amazing day. Live your greatest life in your greatest body. So let's talk peptides. What you just spoke about is very interesting. So I'd like to get into understanding that a little bit. So you said this idea of people are concerned about the half-life of peptides, and you take a peptide, it's out of your system in 15 to 20 minutes, just like growth hormone, right? Like growth hormone, we know it says a 20-minute half-life.
Again, it depends on the size. If it's
Sure.
a short peptides in the blood, it will be not broken down. Some of it will be broken down, but that's a few-hour process. But it will go in the cells where it's supposed to work, and then it's out of the bloodstream very fast, either broken down or it integrates the target cells. So if you look at the half-life of a peptide, you're talking the time it remains in the blood.
Right.
It can be very short, 5-10 minutes for some very small peptides. Max a few hours for bigger peptides. But the point is, it's not an indicative of how long the peptide will be working. If you we talked about the Epitalon and those bioregulators.
Yep.
They bind to the DNA chain, so you have no trace in the blood, but they remain stuck in the DNA chain for months, forever, basically, until the cell itself dies. That's why you need to replenish every 6 months or something to have new cells to get that peptide in them. TB 500, 12 hours max, it's out. Not a trace in the blood, but its after effect lasts 10 to 15 days.
Right. So first thing I want to get into this a little bit is defining what a peptide is for the audience. So we're looking at a molecule formed with between 2 to 50 amino acids, what they suggest.
Could be more.
Sure. More polypeptide, right?
200.
Right.
It's still a peptide. You're talking of not a peptide anymore when there are ramifications. Like when it's, let's say you have a chain of amino acid and another chain attached to it, then you can start to talk of a small protein.
Sure.
Because of that. So most peptides are linear, just a chain. Bigger ones, sometimes they fold on themselves, but it's still a chain, no ramification, like growth hormone again. So basically, yeah. But past 200 amino acids, it's I don't. Out of my mind right now, I don't think there is bigger peptides.
Right.
But again, there is more than 7,000 peptides.
Right. No.
In the body.
Yeah.
If I know 100 myself, it's good.
Sure. Yeah. Now, so these things work basically by entering the cell and maybe replacing certain, they attach onto receptors and they maybe replace other peptides in this transcription sequence.
Yeah, or even they bind to specific receptors many times, like TB 500, BPC. It's not clear how they actually work, but they do work. That we know.
Sure, we know. Yeah, Yeah.
And in terms of receptors, BPC, I think, BPC is very weird because they're just starting to do research on its effect on the brain. It showed good effects, repairing effect, and somehow it does attach to the same receptors as opioids.
TB does.
BPC.
Really?
With a stronger...
so there may be benefit in somebody trying to reduce addictions to...
Well, I wouldn't go that far to say, but it could be investigated at one point by somebody. But I had that personal experience with a client of mine who was using BPC for Crohn. She was using oxycodone or something like that for the pain. And if she would take the oxycodone at the same time of the injection, the oxycodone wouldn't work. The pain wouldn't, it wouldn't do what it's supposed to do. Because the BPC has a higher affinity. So the
interesting. So got it. So it'll negatively impact the effectiveness. Yeah. So BPC has some of the greatest healing benefits in the gut. So we
in the guts, that's its specialty.
Right, and it's also supposed to work on muscle tissue.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've seen some pretty amazing results. You sent me some pictures and stuff that happens as far as ability to heal. I actually experienced it as well, where I did some dental surgery and used BPC for 5 days, and they're like, the healing's going to take 3 to 4 weeks, and 7 days it was completely healed.
Exactly. Sometimes it's a quarter of the time.
Yeah,
repair. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, pretty amazing. So, is it also suggested for tendon and ligament repair, or is that primarily muscles?
No, anything.
Right, so it's suggested for body. BPC
Any,
stands for body protection compound,
exactly.
Right?
And it's
15 amino acid chain. Is that what it is?
Many times I have people asking me, would it be good for this? I don't know, for the kidney, for example. And that was a couple of years ago. And I said, well, the truth is, I don't know. But try it. And yes, it worked. Liver. The patient, client, she had the liver cancer with scars. She got rid of it, but it leaves scars.
Mm-hmm.
A bit like those alcoholic livers.
Alcoholic liver, yeah.
She did one vial of BPC over 3 weeks. 80% of the scars were gone.
Well, so supposed to be decreasing systemic inflammation. We know that, right?
Yes.
But we don't know anything about the mechanism, how it works. It just accelerates healing.
Exactly. The exact mechanism I haven't seen. They're still looking into it. Because most of the research that is done right now around those peptides most of the research comes out from Croatia. And I think they have a financial interest in it because the only country where you cannot legally buy BPC is Croatia. I think there is kind of a protector out there. So most of the study they do, and 90% plus of the studies come from there, they really try to prove their point that the product works. So they come up with all those studies. There are a few studies out of other countries that, yes, back up that research.
Right.
We know it's not biased. It works. But little by little, now they kind of prove their points. Yeah, they go in more basic research on mechanism, but it's just starting.
So let's talk about thymosin beta-4, TB500. Tell me about that. Like, I mean, I have some notes here, but you tell me about what it does.
Basically the same. It's
similar but not different.
Healing effect. Not so much on the gut, though. That's the only difference that I would see on healing. If you have a gut problem, go for BPC. Thing is, almost everybody has a gut problem. Some degree of permeability. But if you have tendon, ligament, muscle injury, I have a tendency to go with the TB500 because I'm a big fan of front loading. That is, first time you use it,
high dose.
Start with a high dose.
Like how much is a high dose?
10 milligrams. 10, 15
at one time?
At one time. Yeah.
Really?
And then because that one...
All in one dose, or would I do it 5 times in one day kind of thing?
No, one shot.
One shot.
And then you continue every 4 or 5 days with maybe 2.5 to 5 milligrams to maintain that high level, not of the peptide, of its effect. And the advantage of it is because if you start at 2.5 twice a week, you build up. So it may take a week or 2 before you see an effect. Front load, 48 hours, you say, oh, it works. You have, and that's good. If you have pain, for example, then that goes away very fast.
Yeah, so some of the effects are suggested to be obviously joint pain and tissue healing. Some people have said it has a difference in stamina,
Yeah, because it increases vascularization to some extent.
Any benefit to either of those things doing locally? Like if we've heard.
Well, I was last week in San Francisco, Silicon Valley, with Dr. Matt Cook, and he's using my peptides for his therapies. He does stem cells, and the guy was an anesthesiologist for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
So is an expert in infiltration, not only
Sure.
in joints, for
Everything.
nerves and everything. So if you infiltrate those peptides, let's say in the knee, where blood circulation is bad, and there are some studies that show that yes, it works better because now you trap the peptide inside the joint, so it's not going to go around. You have a higher concentration.
Sure.
But that has to be with ultrasound, and don't try that at home. Then yes, you would have a greater effect and faster.
Is that legal for doctors to be using now, or is that kind of gray?
It's a great zone, but right now the FDA, I'm not in the state in Canada. No, in the States, there are a lot to work under the cover of investigative medicine.
Got it.
And you signed a paper when you walk in that you agree to be part of some kind of investigation or research on those things. So it's still a gray zone. Probably in a year or two, they will come out with some laws on that, hopefully in favor of. But it's a gray zone.
You brought up Epitalon. I'm very curious about that. So, like, that one seems to have this incredible overall benefit, right?
Yeah.
So, one thing I'll say about the TB500 before we move on is I've seen probably 500, maybe 1,000 research studies, and like every one of them is just amazing, right? Everyone has great results. So that one there's definitely something there to be considered for anyone who's looking to optimize healing or decrease inflammation, or like for sure. It's almost the type of thing that you may want to suggest everyone kind of take, right?
Even as, I talk 10 milligrams, and then that I'm talking curative protocols. But I'm a strong believer too in preventive protocols.
Sure.
Where, okay, you don't have or you don't feel any injuries, but you may have small injuries that are starting to develop. So as we say, you kill it in the egg. Maybe once every 2 months, you do one vial of TB500, bang, so it doesn't grow into something bigger.
Right. Has there been any reports of negative implications of people with these things? Like, so maybe someone has some type of genetic predisposition, turns on some gene and causes negative effects?
No, the worst case scenario with most peptides that I get with people using them is it doesn't work.
Yeah.
For me, not from side effects, bad effects, no. It's either it's great, like amazingly great, as the best effect, to the worst case scenario I get is it didn't work. And that's only because those people are at the left end of the curve. They're like almost non-responders.
Yeah.
And most of the time with those people, you just increase the dose and then it's going to work.
You also have to be aware of the subjectivity of like someone's perception of what working really means, right? Because like, what are their expectations, So
that's very true.
Yeah, like I was expecting it to be like change the way I feel. I'm like, well, what are you expecting? You always have to be clear on that because, everyone could be expecting very different things.
And I've seen reported side effects like rashes at site of injections and little things like that. But it's not due to the peptides. It's due to the bacteriostatic water. They put a bit of alcohol in it, and antibacterial compounds, and a very small percentage of people, but some are sensitive to that, not to the peptides.
And now, okay, that's really interesting. So moving on to Epitalon, or however you may pronounce that. What is it? What does it do?
Well, ask me what it doesn't do. That would be faster.
Yeah. So now, is that one of these that you take all the time as well? I mean, you take TB, VPC. Is Epitalon one you take all the time?
That's one peptide A friend of mine, Salim Satir,
Yeah.
he speaks highly of Epitalon.
He's been telling me to take this for 10 years, man.
And I remember him saying that if he was in charge of government, he would give it to people for free.
Yeah.
And just the cost of saving in healthcare would outweigh the cost of giving it. So basically, it's more of, okay, sometimes you get immediate effect. And most of the time it's on sleep. It upregulate melatonin secretion. It brings it, but you see that more so with older people. It brings the levels back to youthful levels. So a lot of, when I'm talking older, maybe like 40 and up.
Sure.
They see right away or within a few days much better sleep. But the general effect, it's the kind of peptide, if you start to take it now, you will thank me in 15 years. You don't get that. Okay, you take one shot, 10 milligram shots of TB500 in 2 days, it's like, whoa, yeah, it's working. Epitalon,
it's not really noticeable.
You won't notice right away. Even I've seen, I'm in a few groups in Facebook, and they measure their telomeres before a cure of, let's say, 3 weeks or a month. Then they measure it after, and it's not working. Well, no. There are human studies where they did see an increase of about 15% in the telomere length. But those studies were conducted over 15 years.
Right.
Don't expect the telomere to suddenly grow big.
Sure. It's going to take longer than that.
That's why I say, if you do it twice a year, you start now, in 10, 15 years, then yes, you'll a bunch of effect.
That's a hard sell for people. Most people don't want to sit down and go, I'm going to take this every year for the next 15 years, and maybe.
No, not maybe. That is for sure.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
But
the problem with it is, with the peptides, this is a serious concern. It's like, where are you getting it from, right? And how do I know that I'm not just spending a bunch of money on something that's just, some crappy powder that there's nothing in there?
There are 3 sources, basically, of peptides. The one you see the most are those internet sites where they sell it, sometimes ridiculously cheap. And those 90%, roughly, they're imported from China. Now, not that they don't get the right peptide, but they don't get the control. They don't get the security.
Sure.
At the end of the day, they're not sure what they're taking.
Right.
In terms of quality, in terms of dosage. They advertise, let's say, 5 milligrams per vial, but is there 5 milligrams?
Right.
So, there is that doubt always.
And is it contaminated with something else?
And that's the other thing. When we talk about the quality, you don't know what's in it. Besides that, there is one peptide, actually PNC 27, and the FDA sent another because they tested the product. It was PNC, but they found dead bacteria in it, which can, reconstitute, you don't know what it can do. So I don't think anybody, with that AVR cold or something a few years ago, I don't think nobody wants Chinese bacteria.
Avian flu. So this is the problem. How do we know, right? This is enough. That is enough right there to deter anyone from wanting to try this stuff. Because I don't know where it's coming from. I don't trust.
The second source would be a compounding pharmacy, where they have their own HPLC. So
sure,
wherever they get it from, it's tested when it comes in. Then it's compounded as it should be. And then you can have that kind of quality. It will be more expensive, but it's not out of greed. It's simply out of quality, basically. You pay for it's the whole thing. So compounding pharmacies, there is a few in the U.S., but usually they will sell to you with you'll need a physician script
Sure.
to go through those pharmacies. And there is small companies that produce high quality. Well, no, I don't know if my company in Montreal.
Yeah.
Basically, it's produced in the university lab. It's not officially GMP because that will increase the price. To give you an example, we had to give a quote for one peptide. I don't remember which one, and nor quantity, but the quote was, if it was non-GMP, it would have costed them $5,000. If they wanted it GMP, it would have been $80,000. At the end of the day, the exact same peptide.
Right.
But the GMP involves paperwork, involves the government coming in, involves a lot of stuff that cost. So, and that's why to compounding pharmacies, it's so expensive because they are GMPs. So my company, we're like in between. We sell those, we make GMP quality without the GMP certification. So now it's a bit of a leap of faith from the client, obviously. But so you get the same quality at affordable price. It's sold as research chemicals, so no, you don't need a physician script for it. After that, what you do with it, it's you. So in the US, I'm pretty sure there must be a few companies that do that too, but I don't know which one they are.
Yeah.
Just I have ideas, but to be sure, I would have to visit their labs, and I didn't do that.
So wrapping up Epitalon,
yes,
suggested dose and protocol.
All the human studies done on it that showed the effects, the dosages total was either 50 or 100 milligrams, done over 10 days. Different protocols, but again, at the end of the day, the importance is to get the full amount. And me, I'm in favor of 100 milligrams twice a year. I've seen in cases where there was an effect on sleep that then you could see an immediate effect. It seems to work better if you take smaller dosages per day and spread it out. So instead of, like in the studies, of taking 10 milligrams a day for 10 days, then take 5 milligrams a day for 20 days.
Right. For
short-term effects it may have, it seems to work better.
Awesome. So one of the things that I'm super interested in is Melanotan too. And, you and I have discussed that personally, but I'd love to hear more about, some of the things people know about Melanotan is it's going to cause a tan, but it seems to have a lot more very interesting effects.
There is that anti-aging doctor in Belgium, Thierry Peptides. In his protocol for anti-aging, he includes Melanotan too. It's still aesthetic, but it's for wrinkles, basically. I'm going to make it short. Black people who secrete a lot of melanin, they don't wrinkle so much because it thickens the skin. When you're tan, the skin is thicker, less wrinkles. So, and the normal secretions decrease with age. So it's included. It's still aesthetic, but it's small dosages for that. It can be part of an anti-aging protocol. And of course, there is that pro-sexual effect. There was one company a few years ago who wanted to commercialize Melanotan as a concurrent to Viagra, basically. And the only one reason that they couldn't, and in general, why Melanotan is not sold in pharmacies, is that one side effect, the percentage is too high to go as a drug. No, if you have a tendency to do high blood pressure, it may aggravate it.
True story. Yeah. Now, you've never heard anything around decreasing inflammation or affecting blood sugar or appetite anyway?
Appetite, it does increase a little the appetite. Decrease it. So, but I wouldn't count on that, in a weight loss protocol. It's a slight decrease of hunger. It may help, but I wouldn't take only that to lose weight. Sure. Say no. But yeah, it has a slight effect.
Is the libido increase, is it the same in men and women or mostly men?
No, women too. Because the effect is in the, all those drugs like Viagra, Cialis, they work locally on the nitric oxide systems to increase the blood flow there and bang. Melanotan 1 and 2 and PT141, which is a derivative of melanotan that doesn't make you tan, but you get that post-sexual effect. They work in the brain. So what it does, it stimulates not only, to be blunt, in man, it won't only stimulate the erection, it will increase the drive, the sexual urge.
That's melanotan 1?
2.
Okay.
And PT141. So it increases that just to bring people back in time, when you're 16, 17.
Sure.
And, you got to go out there and find a girl.
Yeah.
Well, it brings that back to you.
Interesting. Any benefit that you see from melanotan 1?
They're pretty much the same. Melanotan 2 seems to, I didn't look much into it. I never paid attention to Melanotan 1.
Mm-hmm.
So, no, I couldn't tell.
Okay.
Actually,
great. Yeah, not many people have, but I've heard a couple of people talk about it and have some interesting effects. Mm-hmm. How about one thing that I'm really interested in is GW501516, otherwise known as cardio, right? So it seems like some of the benefits and studies there have been crazy because there's tons of human studies, right?
Yeah.
So some of the results there, it seems like a pretty incredible opportunity.
It is. In the last few years, they talk, the big thing is mitochondrial health.
Yeah.
Well, that would be the product. It increases the number and activities of mitochondria. Increases for athletes, it does increase vascularization in the muscle.
With VEGF, yeah.
So that's an automatic increase in VO2 max.
Yep.
And basically that's what it does. But let's come back to the mitochondria effect. That's basically, as we grow older, mitochondria get sluggish,
sure,
so to say. So that brings back their normal or even more activity. So that could be one of the products you could use as a base, actually, for an anti-aging product.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some great benefits with myself and with clients, and just like almost immediate fat loss, increased energy. Mm-hmm. Apparently, the numbers with cholesterol are pretty fantastic as well.
You wouldn't see that again in a week, but over time, after some months, you would see an improvement in that because it makes your cell prefer fatty acids as a source of energy over glucose.
Interesting.
And it works even better because of that if you're on a ketogenic diet.
Uh-huh.
It makes the diet works even more, and you get a better effect endurance-wise.
And what's the dose on that?
Dosages, you could get, like, if I would use it in anti-aging purpose, I would go low, maybe 5 milligrams a day. That would be enough. For an athlete, then you would 10. You can go up to 20, no problems. I've seen people who are more inclined to use it for fat loss, sometimes up to 30 milligrams.
And that's just an oral, right? That's like a
Yeah, that's
tincture.
oral, once, maybe twice a day. The half-life is 16 hours. So,
Any effect on sleep if it's going to be that long?
No.
So you could take it, go to bed.
Well, I would take it in the morning to get its greater effect during the day. But there is a similar compound, SR9009.
Yeah.
That there are studies that shows its effect on circadian rhythms. So if you take SR9009 at night, it may disrupt your sleep. It's better to take it last dose, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the latest.
So that one's got effect on mitochondria as well.
Same thing, yeah.
Which one? Any like comparison? If we were to make a comparison on the two, like would it be both? Would it be one? How like?
Well, to use both, it depends why you take it. If it's for endurance, if it's for mitochondrial activity, at the end they both do exactly the same thing. The thing is that SR9009 start to work further down the metabolic chains, and it includes activation of a SIRT1 transcription factor.
Yep.
Same one as resveratrol, which is one of, because you have SIRT1, SIRT2, SIRT3, SIRT4,
Yep.
but it's part of the anti-aging of the cells. So SR909 would have that extra effect on anti-aging. And when I talk about anti-aging, I'd like to be clear here. In terms of longer life, yeah, you will add some years. I'm not saying you're going to live 180 years. But me, I'm more of a believer in increased health.
Sure. Quality.
Quality of life in your older age. So that you will see big time.
Yes. SR909 seems to have some very interesting things as well with the increased endurance, as you spoke
same
about.
As GW. Now, to take both, it's not that kind of combination where 1 + 1 will make 3.
Right.
It's going to be 1 + 1 = 2. So if you take 10 milligrams of one and 10 milligrams of the other, in terms of endurance, it's going to be the same as if you were taking 20 of one or 20 of two.
Right.
So you can play with dosages like that, but you just increase dosages without like 1 + 1 = 3.
Right. So some of the benefits that this one seems to show is pretty substantial increase in fatty liver, triglyceride levels, and
exactly,
improvement of
because
cholesterol.
it favors the use of fatty acids.
Very, very interesting. So my favorite SARM, so moving along to SARMs, is Rad 140. So I think I've told you about that.
It is mine too.
What an incredible product, and I'm very, very surprised with really how well it works, and it's kind of ubiquitous. Like it seems to work for everybody, right? So tell me about that and why it works so well.
Because it's good.
Yeah.
Basically, all SARMs works for everybody, except LGD. About 20% of people, they don't get. It's like they were drinking water. Does nothing. But all the other ones, Ostarine, Rad, S4, they work for everybody. But why is Rad 140 my favorite? And I'm not saying the other ones don't have those effects, but no studies were done to show they have. Is that Rad 140 is neuroprotective.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you do feel that effect on the brain because it gives you a sense of well-being that goes past the physical increase of its strength and everything. It really affects the mood. improves the mood. Again, as you said, I don't want people to believe they'll take it and it's like they're on cocaine. But it's different for everybody. But there is some positive increase in the mood. So, and proven effect, neuroprotective effect. So I like this one because for sure it does it. I like it because for sure it protects the prostate. And for men, it's a good thing because if we live long enough, we'll all get prostate cancer.
Yeah.
So to have that kind of mild prostate protection, well, you probably will delay that if you were to have it. And for it's anabolic ratio, which is 90-1. That doesn't mean it's 90 times more anabolic than testosterone. It's actually a little less, but maybe 5-10% less anabolic. So, but in practical term, it's about the same as testosterone, but it's 90 times less androgenic.
Right.
So it's almost the perfect anabolic. What they've been looking for. First, when they discovered or they came up with anabolic steroids, were a derivative of testosterone. All those derivatives you see today, decadrabalin, primobolan, those were ways to increase the anabolism and decrease the androgenic effect. And to some extent, they got it, but, maybe 3 times less androgenic than testosterone, 4 times, but nothing close to what you got with RAD, which is 90 times less. It's amazing.
It's another increase in libido as well, potentially.
With women.
With a woman.
Yeah, not all of them. I've noticed you see more so that effect. You would see, with women, you will see a slight increase in the clitoris size. But not all of them. I've noticed with hundreds of people that happened with more, you have those 3 types, ectomorph, mesomorph, endomorph.
Yeah.
With mesomorphic women, athletics one. It seems that the fact that they're athletics genetically
probably have a better predisposition to using hormones.
It seems that they have more androgen receptors in those areas too. So they're more prone to increase in clitoris.
Very interesting. So one that we brought up briefly is ostarine. I just want to kind of compare ostarine against RAD140 from your experience.
Its ratio is 20-1. So it's still 20 times less androgenic than testosterone.
Yeah.
In some cases, ostarine could be used where you would need a bit of that androgenic effect. And specifically, I've seen good results of that with women. Pre-competition, maybe 6 to 8 weeks before a competition, physique competition, where that would help, actually.
Getting them in shape, building muscle, help with what?
Same as RAD. But
why would somebody take ostarine instead of RAD?
I don't know. Except in that specific case. For women, pre-competition,
that might work better.
Weeks.
Just because it's a little more androgenic?
Yeah, and they wouldn't need that at that point. Probably because of the low body fat percentage, it disrupts the hormones. And so you would add a bit of androgenic effect that would replace the lack of the estrogens.
Yeah, it's important to acknowledge in your listeners, like androgenic effect is going to be the masculinizing traits, so the deepening of the voice, the hardening of the muscles.
Yeah, but they won't get that. It's not androgenic enough that they don't have to worry about that.
Right.
But those are the full effect of the androgen part.
How much do you believe in the growth hormone secretagogues, so the GHRH and you know, the ipamorelin and tesamorelin and CJC and all these different things? Like, I don't know enough about them to understand so well, but I'd love to hear how we can.
Okay, it depends why you use them, what for. Okay, if you're a contender for Mr. Olympia and you take huge amounts, basically, of growth hormone, those secretagogues won't match. But for more normal people, if you want to use it for help fat loss or, again, anti-aging effect, then yeah, they will make a huge difference. And they're very potent.
Can you differentiate? If I'm looking at CJC 1295, what is that?
That basically, okay, they're derivatives of ghrelin, the hunger hormones. But in the first time of ghrelin research, they say, oh, but if we inject ghrelin, growth hormone levels go up. They have the same receptors. So they say, oh, okay. So they did the same thing as they did with testosterone. They say, let's modify the molecule so the effect will be more on the growth hormone releasing and less on the hunger. And so the first one was CGC 1295. It has different name. It's too like Mud 129 or but it's CGC 1295. No DAC. DAC is they add the thing that makes it bind to an albumin in the blood, so it lasts longer. But it's not a good idea, and I know that because the biochemist I work with in my company is the one who synthesized the first molecule of CGC 1295 back at the beginning of it was discovered at UQAM, where I'm at, and he saw all the research that was done, and basically long-term effect of the CGC 1295 with DAC is that the mice would die of horrible death by using that compound for a long time. He always tells me, he says, no, not a good idea to use this one. Short term, yeah, it's good because you shoot twice a week and but no, not a good idea. It's basically blood cancer. The albumin it attached to it affects it and eventually can provoke cancer.
Because so CJC, if I'm taking that, is that a daily thing? Is that a morning and night thing?
Yeah, in that case, that would be the non-DAC. It's a very short acting, so. Basically, you use it when you want your peaks of growth hormones. So if you use it for anti-aging, usually once a day is enough. And
before bed or in the morning?
Right before sleep. So you get your peaks overnight. It will increase the quality of your sleep. It will increase the length and deepness of your deep sleep. And that's when a lot of body repairs, brain including, happens.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good time to have growth hormone, which is repairing, when most of the repair occurs. So right before bed, it's a great time for anti-aging effect. If you use it for fat loss, then maybe twice a day, right before bed and first thing in the morning. Those would be two perfect times to use it. And if you use it really for muscle gain, 3 to 4 times a day. So again, first thing in the morning,
wow,
right before bed. A good time would be maybe 20 minutes after the end of your training.
Okay.
I say 20.
Now, is it counterintuitive with or counterproductive with growth with carbohydrates?
Yes.
So you have to keep the carbohydrates.
You have to no carbohydrates about an hour before and maybe 20 to 30 minutes after the injections. And that's not for the growth hormone itself. It's for its conversion to IGF-1 by the liver. And that's more so for people who take it for muscle.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually the IGF-1 increase that you want.
Sure.
So you have to watch that.
And that's because insulin and IGF are competitive at the receptor sites. If your insulin levels are elevated, then they may not get as much activity.
Yeah, well, the liver won't produce IGF-1. Yeah.
Right. Can you compare like ipamorelin, tesamorelin, and all these other?
Well, there are generations of the first generation, or the GH. What's the name? The 2 and 6.
Yep.
Those are the first generation. They were a crude derivative of ghrelin, so they still have a very strong effect on the appetite. You take those, and okay, again, if you're a bodybuilder in the bulking phase, that's great because you're gonna eat like crazy. But then there is a second generation that came that the effect on appetite was gone. But they do affect cortisol and prolactin levels. So they increase it, which is not so good. And then there is kind of a third generation where tesamorelin, ipamorelin are part of, where there is no effect on the appetite, no effect on cortisol, and no effect on prolactin. That's why I prefer those.
Right. So how does someone differentiate between the CJC, ipamorelin, tesamorelin? There's all these other ones that they take it. Like if you go to a TRT doc in the US, they're going to give you all these. I don't even remember, but all these potential secretagogues, because some of them cause like an increase in the production of growth hormones. Some cause a release. Right. I don't know how to differentiate.
Well, CJC 1295
is a growth hormone releasing.
It's not clear, but they have. Okay, there is two classes. There is one class that provokes the actual secretion or the of the growth hormone,
mm-hmm.
and the other one increase the size,
right,
so to say,
the amplitude
of that secretion.
Right.
So now, if you combine both, you get that 1 + 1 = 4 or 5, actually. So if you would take, for example, 100 micrograms of CJC 1295, let's say you would have a peak of growth hormone of 10. Let's put a number like that. If you would take ipamorelin, take 100 micrograms, maybe 150, it's a bit less potent, so you compensate, you would get 10. But if you take 50 and 75, half of one and half of the other one, then the peak will be maybe 20 or 30. Will be 20 or 30. So with much lower dosages, you get much higher peaks. And there is a saturation, because basically it works at the pituitary.
Yep.
And there isn't that many receptors there. So roughly the saturation, I wouldn't say full saturation, but the optimal dosage is roughly 1 microgram per kilos of body weight. So if you weigh 100 kilos, 100 microgram would do. From that point, if you double the dosage, you will increase the secretion. You won't double the secretion. You will increase it by 50%. And if you double again, if you go to, let's say, 400 micrograms, you will have an extra 25. You have that diminishing return curve that is not worthwhile. Right. If instead of increases dosages, if you want more effects, increase frequencies of injections.
One thing that's interesting to me is deep sleep inducing peptide.
I love this one.
Right, I've never used it, but I'm very curious. What if you like? If you're saying you like it, that's a good thing. Tell me about it.
Okay, I've used it myself. I got misled, like a lot of people, because they see I got stuck, and people in general, they get stuck on the sleep-inducing part. But it's not going to put you to sleep. You inject it. It's not like you take a Valium and in half an hour, bang, you're out. None of that. You're going to think it's not working. Because it's not a sleep-inducing peptide. It's a deep sleep-inducing peptide. So what it does is, at time of it will induce it. It will provoke the deep sleep in due time. You have to go through the phases of sleep. So it will make your deep sleep deeper and longer. And I've seen it, and other people, have the Oura Ring or with trackers. And yeah, in my case, when I use it, it increases my deep sleep length. It doesn't track the deepness of it, but the length it does by a 20-30% increase in time.
Wow, that's amazing.
And
how often do you use it?
That too is tricky. It's one of those peptides that eventually you don't need to take every day. It kind of reset your brain. So, and actually it works better if you take it during the day, not before you go to sleep. It's actually better to take it at least 2 hours before you go to sleep. You take it in the afternoon, no problem. And what I do is, if I'm to use it, I will use it maybe 7-10 days every day. And then after that, you can, every 2-3 days, one shot, and it's going to, because you're resetting that whole sleeping pattern thing. So it's pretty amazing for that. It's still, up to a few years ago, that peptide has been known for many years.
Really?
People, the researcher, they had no clue. They knew it was produced in the body, but they had no clue where it came from. Now they kind of found out where it comes from, but it's a bit of a mysterious peptide in that sense.
Interesting.
But it works
if it
really
works,
good.
that's great. So let's move on to brain stuff, because that's maybe my greatest area of fascination. Yeah. So C-Lank and C-Max being the two primary ones that most people may or may not have heard of, but C-Lank and C-Max being the two maybe most common, right? Mm-hmm. Let's talk about C-Lank. So there's some obvious research behind this stuff. And is it injectable, or is that oral? How does that work?
Okay. The best route to use them is injectable. Second best route would be intranasal. But as best route is injectable, because 99% of it reach the blood flow and it goes where it's supposed to go. Oral, it's not going to do anything. It's going to be they're very small proteins, basically peptides, so you digest them. Intranasal, you still have some absorption. Maybe I would say roughly 60%.
Do you guys have that, the intranasal?
Well, we don't have it, but it's easy to make. You go on Amazon, you buy those little sprayer, right, and dose it, and bang, it costs $15 and do it yourself. The best route is still injections, basically. But if you're to use it many times a day, then yeah, you do intranasal. It's not so expensive, so yeah, you can do it this way. And you still, if it's for a biohacker for the brain and yeah, I would do it intranasal. Actually.
Right. So what are the benefits people are going to see? Is it just like, hey, my brain's going to work better, I'm going to have better focus?
Things about nootropics, and let me tell you, there is a lot of research done on drugs and peptides and things to increase intelligence, but it's not happening yet. Your IQ won't increase or anything. Basically, you use all those nootropics and brain repairs not to increase your brain capacity, but not to lose brain capacity, which occurs with time. You try to keep what you have, which is a plus already.
Mm-hmm.
I came aware of one compound, I don't even remember the name right now, that was proven to increase IQ by 2 to 6
Cerebral
points.
acid, maybe?
No, I never heard of it before. I came on it. I'll maybe next podcast. I will get the compound.
I'll be the first guy to be the test on me.
Okay, well, yeah, I'll be the first. You will be the second. But that's the first time I see that, and it's all new. So I won't say more for now, but in the upcoming weeks. Well, I'll send you the information. So if you want, at one point on your website,
that'd be great.
Mention it. I'll share with you because I'm sure many listeners will be interested.
Yeah.
So basically, it's to keep function brain. So they work at different levels. Increase dopamine, increase acetylcholine, increase GABA activity, or binds to GABA to work like. So that's why C-Lank and C-Mac, they have many effects.
So from what I remember, C-Lank is more of like an anti-anxiety. It's more of a calming, like an antidepressive, whereas C-Max is more of like a cognitive enhancer.
Exactly. So if you are to use both, I would use C-Lank more at the beginning of the day and C-Max more at the end of the day, which calm down, and that will help to a better sleep too. Basically, in terms of what it does, again, it's very individual. We're talking about brain. You never know. The best. That's why with nootropics, I don't like to tell people.
So both of these, you would say, maybe aren't something that you'd recommend people to try. So it sounds like TB500, BPC.
Well, no. I would tell them try it,
right?
But one by one, right. See how it works for you.
But it seems like it's pretty subjective. Like you're not going to notice a big difference.
Well, no. Some people, they do notice. More so with the C-Lank for the brain waking up. Yeah, you notice a difference.
How about cerebral acid? Are you familiar with that at all?
Actually, I haven't used it. But Matt Cook has used it with one of his patients that I think in November, he had a major operation and the anesthesia went wrong. The main anesthesiologist had to leave, so they put a student and it fucked up. So the guy woke up with some form of mild dementia, the one where he doesn't have short-term memory. It's gone. You talk to him about what happened 30 years ago, it's vivid as if it was yesterday. I met with him. We talked. Every 5 minutes, he would ask me again the same questions, like bad case. And it's bad. The guy is a doctor. His IQ was evaluated around 170.
This is Dr. Matt?
No,
the other guy.
Not another guy, a doctor from LA, gastroenterologist. Very bright mind. I speak Spanish. He speaks perfect Spanish. He speaks Latin. 5 languages. He speaks German, perfect. But now is short term. And Dr. Cook gave him cerebralism, and it cleared his mind, but it was transient. It wouldn't last, but it did have an effect. It did work.
Right. That one seems most interesting to me as far as all the brain peptides, right? So decreasing beta amyloid plaque, decreasing inflammation, protecting the brain potentially, right? So that one seems most interesting.
Exactly. And again, in that sense, that's not the kind of effect that you'll see right away. It's the kind of things that you use it regularly. I'm not saying all the time, but you do for a month.
Right.
You don't have to go crazy on that. But that people using it will thank you in 10 years.
Hurry up and start making it already so I can get it.
Yeah.
So the only other one that I want to touch on today that because it's relevant to the muscle building crowd is follistatin. And like, is there actually any legitimacy to that stuff?
Truth is, I personally haven't worked much. If I may, and maybe you should have him on your podcast, is Salim Satir.
Yeah.
Is when it goes to bodybuilding,
he's the man.
Supplements,
yeah,
talk to him.
Yeah. I totally agree. Yeah.
Is be the man for that. And
yeah.
He has experience with those inhibitors, myostatin inhibitors and all that. So I wouldn't step on his expertise here. It is the man you should try to get on your podcast.
Definitely connect with him. Is there anything else that we missed that maybe you're a fan of that you saw on the website, or anything else you want to talk about?
Well, soon. No, well, I'm working on a few formulas because I've noticed working with Matt, and when I started to send him peptides last year, the first thing he was calling me every day, say, okay, how much water in this one? How much of this? How much of that? Like every day calling. I said, well, okay. I said, I'm going to do something. I'm going to start to work on formulas. Let's say one anti-aging formula. The one I have in mind will have like 8 or 9 peptides in one vial in the right dosages for each. So it's no-brainer. Just put the water in, draw the quantity, use it. You get everything. You don't need to mix like 7, 8 vials. So for anti-aging, one formula. For brain health, another formula. For tissue repair, TB500, BP6, another formula. And eventually maybe I'll see other formula that would be worthwhile. So that's what I would see, because we could talk anti-aging. There are many peptides you could use. Well, many, but like Mutsina is in the game.
So what's that?
Muts-C. It works at the cellular level. First, it was investigated.
Spell that for me, Jean-Francois.
MOTS-C. And it showed in mice to have amazing effect on the fat loss. But
mitochondria-derived peptide.
Yeah. So it's a bit, at this point, I'm not sure if GW doesn't do the same thing, actually. Right. But it has not proven effect of anti-aging effect. So I'm going to throw it in the anti-aging formula.
Right.
I will put some BPC 157 in the anti-aging formula. Why? Because repairing of tissue is good. Not in curative dosages, in preventive. Again, you always have to see the distinction.
Yeah.
There is humanin, it's called. It's another...
Humanin?
Humanin. Yeah. It's another anti-aging peptide, mitochondrial peptide.
Can you spell that one for me?
HUMANIN, I believe. And study in mice showed that when given that peptide, they live 20% longer. So yes, it does have
neuroprotective peptide?
2, yeah. So, a bunch of general effects that are overall good in the overall anti-aging protocol. That one, the only one that I've heard of talking of that peptide, and I was surprised, is Ben Greenfield.
Mm-hmm.
I went to, when we met in Toronto,
yep.
Ben gave a presentation and he mentioned that peptide, and I said, the guy. When he mentioned it, we had the batch made already, but not put it sitting there because I'm not sure yet of the actual efficient dosage, so I didn't. It's not on the site yet, but it will be in the next few weeks.
Oh, wow.
Same for Mutsina. We had the batch done last summer.
I'm doing a little reading here online, seeing what it seems as though it's just a mitochondrial efficiency thing, right? It's
but through different pathways.
Okay. Again, huge benefit to that, right? And so the listener doesn't know what mitochondria benefit are. As you age, your mitochondria, as you said, becomes sluggish, a little less efficient. So if we can turn them back up, our energy production goes up, our ability to burn fat goes up.
To repair, to do everything.
Yeah. Produce hormones.
when I was in California, I had NAD plus IVs.
Yeah.
I told you a bit before. Amazing results. Not results you see the first day. Me, I saw some people the first day they notice the difference. Charles used to see it with one shot. Me, it took like 4 days, but when it kicked in, wow, I'm addicted. And Matt, I assisted to one presentation he made in front of general public, and when he talked about NED, people ask, what is it for?
Mm-hmm.
So Matt, he presents it. He says, look, imagine a map of all Americas, north and south. NED, so that map of the roads are all your biochemical processes. NAD plus will work at all lights and stop signs everywhere. So, and it does decrease your levels. They decrease with age. So basically, you ask me what it does, I'll tell you, it does everything.
Just energy production.
It does everything. It's a basic molecule that is there every process.
Yeah, there's just the subjectivity, from my experience, the subjectivity of that. Does it actually work in IV form, right? Like, so we know orally we get some absorption.
Well,
it's poor.
the consensus now is it would be like a front loading. You go for a few days IVs to bring back your level, and the consensus is you can kind of maintain those levels after by taking those compounds. You can buy nicotinamide ribose, and there that one, or M&M, I think, or even plain niacin, 50 milligrams twice a day, something that will stimulate your own production of NAD. Those compounds wouldn't be enough to replenish, but they're good enough after you add a therapy, IV therapy, to maintain those levels. So to make you need another IV therapy much later. So at the end of the year, that would be much more cost efficient like that.
What dosage were you doing IV? Do you recall?
It's 1 gram. That's the highest dosage.
It's painful.
It depends. If the drip goes fast, but you control it yourself. You have that little wheel. But if you do it in 3-4 hours, it's okay. If you do it in there are even people now, they do it. They call them when you shoot everything a push IV. Yeah. They do it in like half an hour. It's ridiculously painful.
Well, like worse than the vitamin C. Have you ever done high dose vitamin C?
I don't know about the vitamin C.
Yeah.
But it's a kind of pain. It's not dangerous.
It's burning.
Not burning. On the chest, it's like an internal pressure. And in the head, it's not a headache. It's a head pressure and warmth.
That's terrible.
It's a weird sensation.
Yeah.
So when it's mild, when you go slow, it's sustainable, and it affects your speech.
Okay.
Somehow you have it comes slower. Maybe because you have the pain at the same time, but I found it worthwhile. And if you take your time, do it over 4 hours, you'll be okay. My girlfriend, she's a woman. They're more resistant to pain. She could do it much faster than me without any problem, but probably have a bit of
a higher pain tolerance. Sure.
Yeah, let's put it this way. I was going to say sissy, but
Very cool. Jean-Francois, thank you very much. I'll direct everyone to your website. Great resource for Peptides. Thank you very much for teaching us.
Hey, very good. And I'll send you some tables. I don't know because it's a podcast, but on your website, a few things you could post.
Perfect.
Like the long-term effect of Epitalon, a couple of schematic explaining things.
I'll tell you the easiest thing to do. Like I think I told you this last time we spoke, is like putting together one like cheat sheet on like here's all the peptides, here's what they do, right?
Yeah. So
anyone can download that on the website, even on your website. That would be a great thing to do.
You know where I have the because I don't like to write, but if they go on my Facebook page, not my personal, but just look up CanLab.
Yeah.
That's kind of the business. It's and once in a while I put up little articles. I explain a few things. I put some schematic.
Right.
So people, I put the HPLC results of our products, but the HPLC of we do, not the one that the company would make it send you, but the one we make. So.
Right. But even as people order from you, I think it would be useful to send them this one page that has everything on it. And it says exactly what it does, because you get so many different things. You're like, I don't remember when I'm supposed to take this. Like, what does it do? When should I take it? How much should I take?
It can become very confusing.
Right. And you get 5 different products. You forget what to do it. Like having one sheet you put on the fridge would be very, very helpful.
Okay. Yeah. One more thing.
We'll get more people to
on my list.
We'll get more people to come to your website to pick that up. All right, Jean-Francois, thank you so much for your time.
Very welcome. Thank you.
And that's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Jean-Francois and you gathered a bunch of information. Maybe you took some notes, maybe you didn't, but definitely check out the show notes on this one to check out all the details that Jean-Francois was giving you. And I definitely plan to have more guests on the podcast in the future with respect to peptides, because I know there's a lot of great authorities out there. And I know this is a very interesting topic because these substances and molecules have tremendous positive implications and don't seem to have a tremendous downside because of their relatively short half-life. It seems as though the negative effects are relatively limited. So hopefully you enjoyed our conversation. You got tons out of it. And as always, share with at least one person you know will love it. Head over to iTunes right now. Leave a review for Jean-Francois. Let him know what you thought of his information. You can also check out him on Facebook, where he gives a ton of information on peptides on a pretty consistent basis, 2 to 3 times a week. He's got a new post about something, or he's sharing research. And if anyone has any research they want to share, by all means, head over to the Muscle Intelligence Facebook group, join that, and share any of the research that you're interested in sharing with myself or any of the guests or followers of the Muscle Intelligence podcast. Have an amazing day.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Muscle Intelligence. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to share it with at least one person you know. And make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an episode. This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Ben Pekulski and the producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements or advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.